seeing persons who have no business anywhere where sensible human beings are gathered being appointed to go and represent Nigeria as ambassadors. Have you seen our president at international fora? He will be stood to one corner, incapable of mixing with the persons he was meant to be interfacing with. These persons are constantly in the front of the people, debasing themselves, and these are the persons that we are meant to be represented by. Femi Fani-Kayode, Remo Omokri, the drunk that was in Enugu. And we are lying to ourselves that we are still possessed of a country. You shout and send out distress signals when the state is failing, is structurally weak, not when it has imploded. And let me be very clear about this. You only speak to those who can hear you. And it is unfortunate that the Nigerian state is completely incapable of hearing. So my SOS is not to the Nigerian state. My SOS is to everyone and anyone who is still capable of hearing. Whether that be foreign governments, whether that be Nigerians in the diaspora, whether those be Nigerians who are also victims right here in Nigeria with me, it is time we all come to the understanding of the fact that this is not about rearranging deck chairs on a sinking ship. The state is sinking. Look, it's lost territory. It cannot control its own territory. And this is in stages. Let me show you. In Katsina, Buhari's own state, entire local government areas are in the hands of what we euphemistically refer to as bandits. We have spoken volumes about the true definition of the terrorists that the Nigerian state mollycoddle and call bandits. They control local governments. They're collecting taxes. They are collecting taxes. Our government is incapable of projecting power into those places. It has no capacity to do that. What I am explaining to you is that whilst you might be ensconced in a situation similar to mine, where I am capable of speaking Dogon-Turenchi in air-conditioned spaces, there are Nigerians burying their loved ones today because the Nigerian state has failed in its most basic duty of protecting them. You can call it any name you care to call it. The person is being killed in Katsina, you can't call that genocide. Those are fellow Fulanis and Muslims too. But right now, today, as we're speaking, somebody else, another branch of the madness that has been licensed and tolerated by the Nigerian state, is murdering somebody because they are Christians and because they are non-Muslims, because they own their land that these other persons are coveting. They are killing those persons and taking over their land, and the Nigerian state is stood by. Complicit. Complicit. That is what I call it. Complicit. Entire communities, villages, destroyed and resettled. And the Nigerian state stands by. That is the one that is genocide. It exists side by side with the terrorism of the one that we call bandits. It exists side by side with the terrorism of the one that is the mineral bandits. Those ones who will chase people off their land because some persons who have legal mining license is required the services of bandits to access mineral rights that have been given in spite of the existing historical rights of the owners of the land. This is the reality. So even talking about save our soul, it is because the persons who should be saving the Nigerian have become complicit in the ruination of the Nigerian. Our government is complicit in the evil that has overtaken this land. So I am saying save our soul, and this is to anyone who still cares about humanity. Don't wait until you are seeing scenes from our cities of slaughter, because it is coming. That is the reality. All that is standing between us and also slaughter is the illusion of a state that has already failed or is rapidly failing. How can you say it's not a failed state where the state is no longer able to project power and it does not have a monopoly of force? This is the same country where in the south, Tanteta is required to guard our waterways, a country that has a navy. What do you call that? What do you call that? You talk to me about private military contractors. This is the same country where Salido Kubo openly tells all of us that he operates as a non-state actor under the license of the state to carry out missions that is not even accountable to law. The rules of engagement is unknown to anybody. The terms of engagement completely unknown to anybody. Opaque in the extreme. And that is why in the south you have unknown gunmen, unknown men, you have this one, you have that one, madness everywhere, and he will tell you how many states he has operated in. Why won't he boast about it in a country overtaken by impunity? My friend too, Philip, on Facebook was quipping about how maybe MC Oluomo should have made the ambassadorial list. How could he make the list when they need him for the 2027 election and all the other strong things that has to be done in the country? That is the extent of the country. It has lost its monopoly of force. Everywhere you turn in Nigeria, in the southwest is Agbero, in the southeast is largely partly Agbero, largely separatist agitation, non-state actors, sometimes licensed by the state. That's before you begin to factor in the handful and terrorists. The same thing in the south-south. The south-south, you have the handful and terrorists. Yesterday in Enugu, people were kidnapped. In Enugu, persons known to me were kidnapped. As I've been speaking with you online, I have had calls made to me from the phone number of a friend who has been kidnapped. That is the extent of the putrefaction of this state. You might have noticed my distraction a few minutes ago when I was starting this. It was because I was receiving calls from the number of a friend who had been kidnapped by Fulani terrorists in the state. So let's be clear about something. This is not something that is happening to them. It's beginning to happen to us. It's coming home. It is coming home. You have to align this again with the erosion of legitimate authority. Look, ambassadorial list came out. And what did you see? Yahoo, Mahmoud, the one who declared election in the middle of the night and told all of you, go to court. They named him an ambassador just a little over 2 years after he supervised a fraudulent election. Look, justice must not only be done, it must be seen to have been done. This is a deliberate undermining of the electoral process. It should not be. It should not and could not be that we normalize evil such as this one, where persons who have occupied position of trust that they deliberately, wantonly breached to the knowledge and sight of everybody, and then they are rewarded politically, and it is okay. And you say that is not a failing state. How do you build institutions that endure when such nepotism, such brazen acts of corruption are rewarded by the persons who benefited from this evil? And you are not talking about the faith. Okay, so how do you have faith in that electoral process? So I believe it or whatever the name of the new INEC chairman is, just like it used to be that when you become the NBA chairman, you automatically made it to become the Attorney General. So now once you become INEC chairman, there's an ambassadorial position waiting afterwards. Is this what we are saying to ourselves? And we think it's not time to shout to those who are still capable of hearing that there is nothing right about this. There's nothing right about this. It does not make sense. It doesn't make sense. How do you talk about a country when it doesn't even take itself serious enough to have ambassadors in foreign countries 2 years after a man has smuggled himself to power? You would imagine that a man with the master plan who grabbed this, snatched it, we should have governance ready to run by day one, 2 years after. And this is the best that this system has done. Look all around us. We have a youth bulge. We don't even know how many we are. We lie to ourselves and run with all kinds of estimates, from 180 million to 200 million to 230 million to 220 million. Nobody really knows how many we are. But this is deliberately so that all the illegal immigrants who have overtaken our country, you already have them padded in. We don't know how many you have, but one thing that is clear is that there is a huge youth bulge. The unfortunate thing is that the bulk of this is untrained. Where it is trained, it is miseducated. Where it is not, there is a whole heap of issues staring this in the face. This country is failing, is on its way to failure. You have huge population displacement all over the place. I spoke about the one in Plateau State that is properly documented. 64 villages despoiled and resettled. And there are still governments in this country. The local government chairman is collecting money in relation to those places that have been despoiled and resettled. How? You have groups of internally displaced persons camps. Nobody is looking at them, but we are busy resettling, rehabilitating terrorists, and the victims are left ignored. How do you expect to have peace so that a country might endure or even survive? You have unresolved group grievances. The Igbo will have genuine grievances against Nigeria. So do the Ijaws, so do the Yoruba, so do everybody in Nigeria. Almost everyone has one grievance or the other, legitimate ones against the Nigerian state, and we dare not ask questions. If we speak, we are intimidated, in some cases killed, just for speaking. Nothing more, just for speaking. Killed, imprisoned, victimized, just for speaking, not for anything more. Somebody was said to have incited terror. Okay? Life imprisonment. Somebody was a field commander 20 years in jail. Make it make sense. A man kills a terrorist who was trying to kill him on his own farm. You convict him for murder. Make it make sense. How is that? So, you see, we are getting to a point where we must understand that multiple red lines have been crossed by the Nigerian state. We have a situation today where Nigerians no longer emigrate. It was Shewa Nicola Pokuti who first coined the word, and it's quite succinct. They are escaping now. Let me use myself to illustrate this point. I have never desired to see my children live outside Nigeria. Everything I do initially was about making sure that this country is preserved for our children, so that they do not become indentured slaves in other men's land. So, whilst when it was convenient to have packed my bags and baggages and joined the diaspora, it never crossed my mind. I could never see myself living in the diaspora. And I spent years convincing my children that they want nothing to do with a life in exile. But as the university system collapsed, like most other persons in my generation, we spent money, great sums, educating our children abroad. Sometimes some of us sold our substances, properties acquired over time, savings. We sent them abroad to go to school. And then there's a phenomenon that my generation is now having to deal with. Those young men and women that we spent our substances and our youth training abroad, they don't want to come to Nigeria. They are voting with their feet. They can see the ruination of Nigeria, and they have decided that they will help us in shouting, "Save your souls" from the comfort of exile. Everything we rejected and repudiated is being thrown right back in our faces because we failed to build this country. My own son will tell me he doesn't want to come back to Nigeria. He is a boy I raised understanding that this is home. But can I complain? Have we built a country they can be proud of? You want them to come in for dirty December? They will come. They will come in for dirty December, always waiting for the first opportunity to japa. Some of them wouldn't even come to Lekki or VI. They would rather stay in Ikeja so that they are close to the airport in case everything goes belly up. That is the country we have built, and you don't reckon we should be shouting, "Save our souls." Let me be very clear so that you get it and get it quickly. When you have this much human flight and brain drain, it is contextual evidence of the failure of the state. They recognize, this one that me I'm telling you with double trenching that the ship is sinking. Those kids, they understood it early. They can see it, that this country is not, I wrote a piece some years ago after a visit to the UK. It struck me in the face. I said, Nigeria is not a jungle. I wrote the first one, I wrote the second one. Nigeria is not a jungle 1, Nigeria is not a jungle 2. That was when I realized that if it was a jungle, you would have some order. They can see the disorder, the chaos with which we live, the organized chaos, the madness that we have acculturated. These kids can see it because they didn't grow up with the madness. They couldn't have any excuses for it. We escorted them. Now they come around. They call it holiday. It's almost like going on holiday in a war zone, like a safari. That is what Nigeria has become to the diaspora. They come around, barely tolerate us for 2-3 weeks, and then they japa. You know the meaning of japa? That is when you are running with your hand, eating your handpit. That means you are flapping your handpit as you're running with alarm. That is how they are living Nigeria, running with alarm, because they see no hope. And this is why our case has gone beyond the let's warn ourselves. We should be shouting, "Save our souls." But of course, you probably not hear me. You're too busy dancing Razonto, Burna Boy is this, Davido is that, this one Yash is like that, that one do Yash, that one do BF. Don't worry, a generation will come. It might very well be that this is all they would have to navigate their way back to sanity. Because we've come to a point where multiple red lines have been crossed. And when these lines have been crossed, it's almost impossible to save this country without a systemic reset. Without a systemic reset, there's very little that can be done. We have a country where everything about the economic indicator suggests that the state itself is the one that has weaponized poverty against the people. It's always been the case, but it has accelerated in the last 10 plus years, in the years of the APC. The state has made impoverishment a policy. 46% of Nigerians live below the poverty line. And this was accelerated in the last 10 years. A person against whom you have weaponized ignorance is already doomed to poverty. That is the reality of the Nigerian, and has been his reality for a long time. It didn't start with the APC years. It started in the years of the military, particularly the Babangida years. But it has accelerated dramatically and dangerously in the last 10 years. You have a situation where the state has rolled out policies deliberately designed to sustain the poverty of the people. I'll show you. These are very demonstrable things. When you begin to hear of, oh, subsidy is gone. What is the tangible benefit of that policy to the Nigerian? There must be benefits intended when policies are mooted or initiated or executed. Dele Farotimi is on record as making light of the fraudulence of the Nigerian politicians when they opposed Goodluck Jonathan's attempt at removing fuel subsidy in 2011. He was very, very eloquent in making fun, and they were laughing all over it and about it. But the question is this: at what cost to the Nigerian people? Now you've removed this subsidy. What has been the benefit to the Nigerian people? Food inflation went through the roof. Nothing has happened in terms of infrastructure development. All that has happened is that governors have more money to steal as to the presidency. So what has been the benefit? You have gone ahead to weaponize everybody and to weaponize poverty against everybody. There is a growth today of a hidden and illicit economy. I'll show you. Because of the terrorism in the mineral sector, you have persons who have made billions from gold and diamond and other mineral resources that have been illegally extracted and exported. These persons have money. They have armed bandits to ensure their continuing access to these riches. The state is being compromised in most times, in most cases, by persons who are within the government itself. To whom do we report the evil when the evil is the one in government? How do you report the evil to the evil? Matawale is your Minister of Defense. The amount of allegations against that man alone, pointing at him as a terrorist sponsor, is scary. It is scary. You see complicity everywhere you turn. It is scary. And then you ask yourself, to whom do you expect? To whom do you turn in expectation of salvation, when the persons who should cure the ailment are the ones who are making it to fester? How? What are you supposed to do? Everywhere you turn, there is economic decline. Everywhere. Everywhere. Even government itself sometimes cannot pay salaries. And you talk about a government when it is already collapsing. Look, when the people look to his government and all they see is just widespread perception of corruption and power privatized for the benefit of a few. Nigeria today, I've spoken to it. I spoke of the Feudal Republic of Nigeria. That is what we have today. Power being exercised for the benefit of a chosen few. I can't even use the word elite for them because there is nothing elitist about these people. All they do is consume. They are not unlike that insect that stays inside grain, eats and defecates until it dies. That's what the Nigerian politician does. No purpose, no mission, nothing. And those are the ones to whom we are meant to take our appeal. Look all around you. The state is collapsing everywhere you turn. You have states within the states. Yes. I told you last week of the terrorists. The one, Jankari, the one that killed Aminu and was wearing his uniform. An ACP, Assistant Commissioner of Police, was murdered by a terrorist, and the terrorist was wearing his uniform to attend what they called a peace rally, where terrorists had told government, we don't want to see any policeman. It wouldn't surprise me if General Uba's uniform turns up on the back of a terrorist, because this is what we have tolerated as a country. Now, there is a famous dictator. He says that the judiciary is the last hope of the common man. You and I'm not exactly common, because I am not incapable of speaking for myself. But there are innumerable Nigerians who are essentially common. And those are the ones that should be the barometer by which you gauge the effectiveness of a judicial system. But no Nigerian looks to the judiciary for hope. If they did, the retired chief of naval staff would not have required the Yerima to stop Wike. It's because nobody has any hope in a judiciary that has proven itself incapable of delivering justice or equity. So everybody takes the law into their hands because nobody has any hope. We don't place any hope in the judiciary. But what we fail to understand is that there is an adjunct to this. It is merely symptomatic of the people's resolve and understanding of the fact but the law does not rule. The people know that the law does not rule. The lawyers themselves admit that the law does not rule, which is why they would deploy impunity against impunity. This accelerates the collapse of this state. All is saying to all of us, and I'm saying it to us now, save our souls, because the truth is, we cannot rely on the traditional institutions of state. All the traditional institutions of state have been compromised. There's no justice to be found in the judiciary. I was a practicing lawyer. I can tell you as a fact that there's no justice in our system. I wrote a book on it, and every day they prove me right. Even in dealing with me, they prove me right. You cannot find justice in the Nigerian court. There are exceptions, undoubtedly. There are still good men and women within that system. But as a general rule, the reality is that you don't go to a Nigerian court, hopefully, because they are hopeless. That is the general situation. It is hopeless. It is hopeless.